All right, thank you, Jovi. And hi, Teresa. We're going to start off with you. How are things?
Doing well. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to this. I'm fascinated. For those of you who haven't had a chance to look at her talk yet, Teresa has spoken about designing a successful sprint in 2 hours. And I found it really, really interesting. First question I have for you is, cutting down from 5 days to 2 hours is the obvious one. You need to break it down and reduce the scope of the problem you need to solve. But who breaks it down? Who's the person in charge of breaking it down, a problem from five days to focusing for 2 hours?
Yeah, no, that's a really fantastic question. So really, most of the time it's the product manager or the UX team that we've had a lot of success in doing that. And actually, we have had the most success when the product and UX team kind of work together to break down that problem. And so for any design sprint that doesn't fit into that 2-hour model for us, what we'll do is a series of 2-hour design sprints. So maybe you have 3 2-hour design sprints, which effectively would still be less than the 5-day period. So really a collaborative effort, again, between product and UX.
Yeah, really great. And how do you tackle then the big problems? So you're looking at something over 2 hours, which is solving a lot of smaller problems. Who and how do you tackle the big problems that arise?
Sure. So we do additional design sprints outside of the 2-hour model. So we do recommend for those larger problems doing a longer length of time. We've had success with 4-hour design sprints doing large problems, but also 1 to 3 day design sprints. We still fundamentally, as an organization, feel the 5-day model is a little too much time, even for some of the large problems from a stakeholder involvement. So.
And on, I guess, a stakeholder, if you're running them more frequently, how do you schedule them so to not overload the stakeholders?
Yeah, no, that's a really fantastic question. So we're really fortunate to have a lot of stakeholder input. So over the last year and a half, we've run a little over 25 2 to 4 hour design sprints. And so by creating that less time for the design sprint, we have really allowed the stakeholder input and participation to go up. So when we would do 3 or 5 day design sprints, we were not able to get stakeholders to stay that entire time or even show up at all. So this has really dramatically changed that engagement level, as not only are they participating, but they're able to see those sketches coming out of it and be a part of it. So they get more excited about that buy-in and that future release.
Yeah, I really like that. I have a question here already from Scott. In the 50-minute ideation, how much time do you set aside for presentation versus discussion?
Sure. No, that's a really fantastic. So really, I only set aside usually about the last 15 minutes for presentation. I usually give each stakeholder around a minute and a half to present their idea to the group. And really, for anyone that's had to do, any pitching to your executive teams or getting buy-in on a new product or solution, they really have that minute to a minute and a half to sell the why behind their solution, on why it should be moved forward. And then the rest of that time is really on the ideation focus, is that sketching across the different stakeholders so that every single participant in that 2-hour design sprint is able to ideate and come up with that visual design or written workflow to be able to present to the group. And then obviously there's a little time for voting after too. And usually what we find is there's usually a handful of solutions that you're kind of narrowing in on, that you're kind of marrying together, that become the successful solution.
Yeah, I really like that. It feels very collaborative, and often, if you're doing these shorter sprints in 2 hours, is the outcome often better than you would do for a larger one?
Actually, yes. For us as an organization, it has been more successful. So in my career, I've run or participated in a little over 50 design sprints, and half of the 5-day design sprints, we ended up throwing out the idea. So, and the reason is design sprints are not necessarily meant to take that idea and run with it into implementation. It's meant to really understand and problem solve and really make a decision on whether it is really the best solution to kind of bring to your users. So sometimes what that means is you might get feedback from your users that's negative, and you're not going to be taking that into the release cycle. So a majority, I would say over 80% of the design sprints that we've performed the past year and a half, which again was over 25 2-hour ones, have all gone into live releases already.
Those are phenomenal stats. Jake Knapp needs to be messaged so he can write another book. Yeah. So I have an audience question here. Yeah. Can you share some examples of the types of problems that you would tackle in a 2-hour design sprint? Great question.
Absolutely. No, that's a fantastic question. So I've kind of done a number of different problems. So I kind of talked about in the presentation small and medium problems. So what does that mean, right? So what's really great for this, for anyone that's building like a dashboard concept or mobile app, or they have a handful of 1 to maybe a max of 10 screens that you're building out for that concept in terms of testing, these design sprints are really successful. And really with these problems that you're trying to solve, problems that really do have a visual design focus that you could go into with a web page or a mobile app, do really well with these. But I will say we actually don't just use this for our product and technology organization. We use it to solve company problems as well. So we were actually just looking at redesigning our SharePoint site as a product and technology organization. So we decided to take it to a 2-hour design sprint and pulled in stakeholders from all departments. And we came out of that 2-hour design sprint process with a brand new web design and solution that we're moving forward with now. And so that's what's really versatile about the 2-hour design sprint is the commitment is so little that a lot of people go in it wondering whether there will be an outcome. And as mentioned with ours, 80% have had a really positive outcome. And that's what allowed us to really tackle a number of complex problems in addition to screens. So.
Yeah, I really love that. And you talked about some of the problems it solved. What are some of the challenges that you encountered along the way and in doing this, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was like during COVID, this is kind of all done by trial and error. So actually, once our offices had shut down in March of 2020, which is crazy to say, we still haven't moved into our office yet, so I'm in a home office. But when we had first shut down, I actually had a design sprint I was going to be conducting for 1 or 2 days in the office that was around a predictive modeling analytics dashboard. And I really kind of pushed it off every couple of weeks, wondering, okay, maybe I'll just kind of do it the following week. And what I ended up doing was just throwing together a 3-hour design sprint. At the time I was using InVision freehand, and there weren't even any templates available at the time. And so it was really through trial and error that I just tried to create something virtual. There wasn't really anything I could find online on how to successfully do this virtually. So I just created it for the most part. And what I learned, I look back at that original collaborative tool design sprint, that very first one, to the ones we have now. And it's a hot mess. Like it's like a messy whiteboard of Post-it notes, virtual Post-it notes all over it. So really what I've learned over time is how do we become more efficient using those collaborative tools? And that's not really just with the design of the design sprint, but also stakeholder interaction. So when we started out as an organization actually doing 3 to 4 hour design sprints, we've become so efficient that 2-hour design sprints are the new norm for us.
Wow, that's unbelievable. And just talking about remote sprints as well, that's a challenge in itself, or harder, easier to get people involved?
Actually, I think a little better. I think, with the in-person design sprints, everyone has priorities with their roles. And so you would ask everyone coming into the room to leave their laptop, but there's always going to be distractions. You've got devices nearby. I took my watch off for today, but you've got all kinds of devices and technology and distractions around us. And so what's really great is everyone that we have going into these 2-hour design sprints, we have kind of agreeing to what we call a design sprint agreement. So you're agreeing to no distractions, full dedication and focus for that 2 hours. And we've had a lot of success. And that means your video camera's on, you're inside the collaborative tool, and you're working and committed to those 2 hours to make sure you have that positive outcome.
Brilliant. Teresa, that's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.